One of the other values of storytelling is it shifts emotional state. So I want to give you an example of that and then a chance for you to experience it. Let me tell you what the exercise is, and then I'll give you the example. What I want to ask you to do is pair up with somebody and share briefly, emphasis on the briefly, a situation where you didn't think you would be able to handle it well, and you surprised yourself. You're like, dang, who knew? And I'll tell you, this is maybe a little longer than I would like you to, but I'm giving you this much detail for a reason. I was doing a series of management development programs with a group of prisoners, not literally prisoners, but you know what I'm talking about. They were forced to be there, so not a happy crowd. And even before the program started, they were giving me a hard time. Actually, two guys in particular. I'm like, man. And I don't know, some of you can relate to this. I have delayed intelligence. That I have great comebacks. They're just like hours or days. So when these guys were doing their hassle, I'm like, okay, nothing's coming to mind. But when it was over, since I have to come back and work with these guys, I'm thinking, I need to address this to make sure that doesn't happen again. But, okay, let me step aside. Here's where we do one of those connecting phrases. You know, when you have to have an important conversation with somebody, and you don't think it's going to go well given their past behavior, I'm thinking, how do I bring this up with these guys given their maturity level and what they've demonstrated before? And so my first thought was, I'll just tell their boss. Let him work them over, and I don't have to deal with it. It's like, no, be a grown-up here. It's like, all right. And then I'm thinking, well, I could always pull the teacher card, and like, you were misbehaving, I wouldn't say it that way, but try to use position power to scold them into behaving. And you think about, here's another connecting phrase, if I were working with managers, you think about sometimes as a manager, we pull the position card as opposed to relate as a human being. Okay, back to the story. And what I decided to do was, I need to address them human being to human being, share my experience about how it affected me, why it was a drag, and why I need them to not be doing that. But again, I'm thinking, given their maturity level, I don't have a whole lot of hopes for this. I did a lot of work ahead of time to get out of feeling angry at them and feeling judging toward them. So I got my head and heart right. And when I met with each of them, I was absolutely blown away by, because my head and heart were in the right place, how they rose to the occasion and responded in a really mature way. And their intention, at least consciously, both of those guys' intention, they thought they were doing a good thing by lightening things up. And they had no idea the negative effect they were having, again, at least at a conscious level. And so that's a simple little slice of life where I didn't really think it would go well, and because I did my work ahead of time, I was blown away by how they rose to the occasion. Okay, so that's longer than I want you to do, but if you could do like 1 or 2 minutes with your partner, situation where you didn't think it would go well, and you blew yourself away like, wow, I did this. That's really cool. So 1 or 2 minutes, and then switch, and then come back. And I'll So, question for you. How many of you, as you were telling your tale of overcoming and victory, felt yourself feeling pumped up? Absolutely. Didn't you? Yeah. One of the reasons or uses of storytelling is to create state shift in people. Create state shift. Because one of the things that we know about the mind-body connection is the mind and body are connected. And more specifically, when we think about something very vividly, we recall a memory, it changes our biochemistry. We create the biochemistry and therefore the emotional state of that experience. That's why you can think of somebody that you experience as an annoying life form, and just thinking about them, you find yourself getting irritated or angry or resentful, and they're not even in the room. unless they are. So how thought affects emotion, but also physiology and emotion affect thought. More specifically, how many of you can relate to this? Years ago, I mean, it's not the first time it happened, but this particular time stands out in my mind, that I was traveling somewhere, doing air travel, and you know how that can get old really fast. I'm just feeling sort of beleaguered and worn out, and everything I have to do seems just overwhelming. And I walk by a Starbucks. And so once again, Starbucks figures into the story. I again get a triple shot espresso drink, chug it down, and within moments, here it is, frosty beverage. Within moments, I'm like, not a problem. I can handle anything. You know, I can handle anything the world brings me. You know how that feeling is when caffeine is coursing through your veins. And that's a simple example that most of us can relate to of the mind-body connection. More specifically, when we have an emotional shift, in this case, chemically induced, that it changes how we think, how we perceive the world. Okay? And so, by telling your story of empowerment, you know, you feel like a superhero. Okay, well, how do you use this application of storytelling? In seminars and presentations, both if you tell stories of empowerment and of overcoming, just like Bob talked about being immersed in the story, your audience starts to feel that because they start to connect with that emotional state. Also, though, related to team and town hall meetings, if you have participants share their stories, and this is something that I believe is really important in today's world and the kinds of challenges that everybody is facing, to create a more resilient workforce, a bring it on workforce, or what Southwest Airlines calls a warrior spirit. Part of how you do that is have at every meeting, every town hall type of meeting, is to share and have people share stories of rising to the occasion, stories of victories in their departments, in the company, etc. And by doing that, it shifts the emotional state of the individual telling the story, the individual's hearing it, and just the whole ethos of the culture. So there's more of a sense of, we are winners here, we are victors, as opposed to beaten down, beleaguered employees. So sharing those types of stories in team and town hall meetings, and then when you're doing coaching. So let's say you're working with somebody who says, there's no way I could talk with my boss about such and such, or there's no way that I could be the project manager for this. I've never been a project manager. Having them think about when's a situation where you thought you couldn't do something and you discovered you could. Or what kind of situation do you feel really confident in? And as they describe that, they access, through the mind-body connection, access that emotional state. And now that they're in that empowered emotional state, then you have them think about, so how might you be able to do this? And then back to that kind of superhero thing. Does that make sense?